When most people think of Tom Cruise, they think of a man who plays the lovable underdog, the charming good guy, the hero in almost every movie he appears in. That very same preconceived notion of Cruise is exactly what allowed director Michael Mann to subvert the expectations of his audience in his 2004 cult classic film, Collateral. In it, Jamie Foxx plays the affable Max Durishe, a taxi driver struggling to make ends meet, whose life is turned upside down when he meets Cruise's character, professional hitman Vincent. Upon first watch, we can immediately see that Vincent is one of the most chilling villains in Hollywood. But what if I told you that it's not for the reasons that you think? The film starts its narrative arc with Durishe and his taxi, picking up a woman named Annie Farrell, portrayed by Jada Pinkett Smith. We immediately see Max's competence, pride in what he does, and charming relatability in just one short car ride with Annie. She tries to tell Max which way to go, but he pushes back, saying that he knows the roads of Los Angeles and he'll get her to where she needs to go faster if she'll let him go his route. The two end up making a bet where Annie's ride will be free if Max's way ends up being faster, and with the bet being accepted, the two strike up a conversation. Max reveals to her what his dream is, after advising her to take more vacation time from her demanding job as a lawyer. He shows her the picture of an island that he keeps in his car and tells her that driving taxis is only temporary, until he can save up enough to start his own company, Island Limousines. The two finally arrive at Annie's destination, and with Max having won the bet, she acknowledges that he was right. As she leaves, she hands him her business card as an invitation to call her sometime. In just this one scene, three major tenets of who Max is are communicated to the audience. First, we see that he's extremely competent at his job, and that he takes pride in being good at it. This is shown through his confidence to offer Annie a free ride if he ends up being wrong. In fact, by betting that he knows a faster way at all, he's giving up fare that he could have earned from a longer ride being stuck in traffic, just for the sake of helping her get to where she needs to go faster. The second detail of Max's character that's shown here is his ambition. Right from the onset, he tells Annie that driving taxis is only temporary until he can start his own company. The fact that he's already been a driver for the past 12 years might undermine his argument of how much he really wants to make that dream a reality. But there can be no denial that he yearns for more in his life. Finally, we see that he's very relatable and charming. He challenges Annie, but in a way that impresses her and makes her want to learn more about him rather than annoy her. He's readily willing to share his dream with her rather than keeping his plans close to the vest, and he goes out of his way to help her, even though simply complying with her initial directions would have netted him more money. In short, in his very first interaction with a major character, Max establishes himself as someone who the audience naturally wants to root for. He's the consummate underdog, a competent, ambitious, and personable man only held down in life thus far by circumstance. Does that description sound familiar? It should, because the type of character Max is shown to be is also the typical character that Cruise would normally star as. Michael Mann expertly inverts the role that Cruise plays in the story by placing him in direct opposition to who the audience would expect him to be. We first meet Cruise's character, Vincent, after Max drops off Annie, and at the start of their interaction, he presents as the charismatic figure that one would expect him to play. It seems easy to talk to Vincent, and accordingly he gets Max to open up a bit. Still, it's obvious from the start that there's something off with him. He may not profile immediately as the psychopath he turns out to be, but there's a blatant alienation between him and LA, even between him and people as a whole. His view on the world seems almost nihilistic from what he tells Max. He talks about how he hates LA, he sees it as a cesspool of surplus population teeming with human life, how there's so many people but still no connection between any of them. It's after he tells Max this viewpoint that he cites a story he read about recently as proof. It goes basically along these lines. A man dies on the MTA subway system, countless people sit next to him, but not one person for 6 hours notices that he's dead. It's precisely in this vignette that he shares, which is also in some of his very first lines of dialogue, that Mann reveals exactly what it is that makes Vincent so terrifying. To communicate exactly what I'm getting at by saying this, I need to steal a term from philosopher Jacques Lacan. Lacan was a French philosopher who lived from 1901 to 1981. He was concerned with psychoanalysis, a literary theory pioneered by Sigmund Freud, but he expanded on Freud's ideas to better account for how he thought the human psyche truly worked. The theories that Lacan proposed in his life are vastly convoluted and nuanced, and this video is not meant to be an education lesson about the philosopher. For the purposes of this video, focusing on Vincent, we need only to understand one key term from him, the real, with a capital R. In Lacanian terms, the simplest way to explain the real is that it's the world completely apart from our desires and rules. It's what truly exists in reality without the need for us being there to experience it. When a person in real life, or a character in a story, is afforded a glimpse of the world that cuts through the veneer we usually experience it through, that's them seeing the real. To give an example of what I'm talking about, arguably the most cliché story that shows the real goes like this. A man with a steady job and a loving family is walking along the sidewalk to get some lunch when a massive steel beam falls in front of him. If he'd been just a little further along the sidewalk, he would have been crushed to death. It's through this near-death experience that the man in the story sees the real. He's confronted with the knowledge that the world is indifferent to him. It would have kept on going normally even if he had been crushed by the beam. The realization that's awakened in this man because of his encounter with the real is what Lacan would call the trauma of the real, and it's that trauma that will inform his actions for the rest of his life. And that, at its core, is exactly the issue that the movie Collateral gets at. The emotional heart of the film, the narrative driver of it, is the friction between the world as Max Durishe thinks of it, and how he responds to seeing the real through his introduction to Vincent. In this movie, Vincent isn't just a man, he represents the real. He's the embodiment of cosmic indifference. It's through him that Max sees how little he can truly affect the world, how little control he has, and by showing him this truth, Vincent inflicts upon him the trauma of the real. Vincent's iron fist over Max sidelines him into becoming a spectator in his own story. Max is forced to see the world not through how it affects Max, but how in reality everything goes on without any regard to him. This idea is maybe best seen directly before Vincent sends Max into the club, in an attempt to replace the information he lost when he threw Vincent's suitcase into the road. Max tries to resist against going into the club, but Vincent puts the matter to rest with one final rejoinder. You're out of options, Max. Just take comfort in knowing you never had a choice. Not only does this scene contain one of the most overt hints as to what Vincent truly represents, it also serves as the moment that leads up to Max accepting the trauma of the real and moving past it. Up until this point, with the exception of throwing Vincent's suitcase into the highway, which was a rebellious act but not one that made him break away from Vincent, Max had never allowed himself to accept the trauma of the real that he was being confronted with. We see after Max rises to the occasion inside of the club and convinces Vincent's employer Felix to give him the information he needs, that the catalyst Max needed to change the view of his role in his own story had been introduced. He realizes in this scene that to get through the night alive, he'd need to start exerting his own control over Vincent, as much as Vincent had been doing to him. This is the turning point of the movie, because up until this point, Vincent has been opening Max's eyes to the real. In enforcing his own will onto Felix, Max was able to open his own eyes to the fact that the idea that all he had the power to do was be a passive observer was completely false. This is the moment that Max decides to fight back. Vincent may represent the real, but if Max represents anything, it's the capacity of humanity to fight back against the despair that the world can impose on us. The idea that if you fight back hard enough, you can subjugate even a force as unstoppable as Vincent. Max is empowered into the realization that he can stand up against the daunting world in the club scene, but this only allows him to finally see himself on equal footing with Vincent. It's in another scene that he asserts himself as the one that can render Vincent as the one without any control. We see this for the first time in the scene directly after the shootout where Vincent shoots Mark Ruffalo's character, Detective Ray Fanning. This is where tensions are highest between Max and Vincent. Max sees the killing of Fanning as something he can't forgive, a death that was not only unjust, but completely avoidable and unnecessary. It's one thing to justify Vincent killing those that he describes as terrible people for his job. Max can even justify to an extent the deaths of the people who tried to rob him. But Fanning is the one character in the movie that always believes Max to be innocent, who always tries to help him. There can be no justification for a death that's this much of a needless tragedy, and Max's rage is only brought to greater heights when he and Vincent get into a verbal joust in the taxi. Concepts of cosmic proportion are brought up when talking of why Vincent had to kill Fanning, and another quote that points to Vincent as being a representation of the Lacanian real is brought to light. Max asks Vincent why he did it, and Vincent retorts angrily. He says that the reason he shot Fanning is that there is no reason, there's no good reason, there's no bad reason, you live or you die. This brings Max over the edge with how much of the real he can take, and to prove to himself that he isn't impotent in the world, he takes advantage of his position as the driver of the taxi. He steps on the gas and crashes the car, for the first time showing himself to be able to affect Vincent, and in turn the world, as much as it can affect him. Both Max and Vincent are hurt, but they emerge from the wreck, and that's where Max sees that the next victim of Vincent's is going to be Annie Farrell, the very same girl he drove around to start the night. The Max still subservient to the trauma of the real wouldn't have felt himself able to stop something that seemed as inevitable as Vincent. But the newly empowered Max has already proven that he has the capacity to take control and fight back. That's what the remainder of the movie is, at its basis level. It's a fight between Max, the paragon of humanity, and Vincent, the representation of the cruel and uncaring world, to see once and for all who can truly dominate the other. There's a lot of action between the point when Max first hurts Vincent by crashing the car and the point when he actually kills Vincent. But Vincent's dying words prove once and for all exactly what the villain stood for. Vincent dies in a subway car after exchanging gunshots with Max. Max hits his mark, but Vincent's bullets leave him unscathed. As he sits there dying, Vincent calls back to that first story he shared with Max. A guy gets on a train here at the MTA, dies. Think anybody will notice? It's no accident that Vincent's final words are an allusion to the same story he talked about in some of his first lines of the movie. This is an intentional choice by Michael Mann to underscore once and for all the exact question that a villain like Vincent functions to ask in a story. Because while on the surface Collateral may seem like just another mindless action flick, something to watch to pass the time, what it really does is ask us a deep-seated question that many of us as humans are too afraid to confront. Do we really have any control over our lives? Or is the world that goes on around us, the real, as cold and indifferent to us as we truly fear?